One of the things that intrigues me about human history is how we believe something to be correct, and then over time we realize that we have made an error. Um, there are a couple of good examples of that in science that we all know about. One was Galileo. Galileo believed that the Earth was not the center of the universe. If he did not recant, he would have been burned at the stake for that silly notion that there was something out there beyond the Earth. Most of us have gotten over that mistake and agree with Galileo that there's a universe and that the sun is the center of our solar system, but there are billions and billions of other stars out there. But another example of a mistake that we make is about evolution. The rest of the world buys into evolution. But the United States, up to about 50% of Americans do not buy the fact that we as human beings evolved. In fact, not only that we in human beings evolved, but everything else in the world, in the universe, has evolved since the Big Bang 13 plus billion years ago. But mistakes are not just in science, but they're in the way we view our nation and nations in the world. The British Empire in 1922 consisted of one-fifth of the population of the world, and 25% of the entire landmass of the world. In 2014, this is what remains of a dwindling empire. Northern Ireland, that has been for most of my life in some kind of discussion with the Republic of Ireland. Scotland, that will be voting for Scottish independence on September 18th of this year. And then there's Wales and England, Gibraltar, a dozen or more small little islands scattered around the world, and a portion of Antarctica. And interestingly, because of global warming, Antarctica, along with the Arctic, is melting. So the British Empire is slowly melting away, literally and figuratively. 4 or 5 months ago, I spent a good part of a month in what used to be called Burma. The name of the country today is Myanmar. At that time, years ago, the British colonized that part of the world, and they controlled Burma. And that control lasted for about 130 plus years. And during that period of time, there were 2 British writers who lived in Burma. One was Rudyard Kipling, and the other was George Orwell. Kipling was tied to the past. He was what we would consider today a conservative. He was haughty, self-righteous, self-consumed in the British Empire and who they were. Orwell, on the other hand, saw the mistake of Kipling and other British imperialists. Kipling wrote a poem called The White Man's Burden in response to the way he viewed people and empires. Orwell wrote an essay called Shooting an Elephant, in which he sees the problem of this imperialism and how we treat or mistreat people. when we look at Kipling today, we look at Kipling as being archaic, mistaken. And, you know, we can kind of laugh at that foolishness, you know, the white man's burden. But we need to be careful as Americans not to say and make the same kinds of mistakes. And we are in America. And we need to think before we talk and before we act. Because we don't want to be looked at in hindsight as being as silly as Kipling. Take care.